Hello, everybody. Welcome to your 15-minute writer's warm-up from Jesse Stong and Playwright's Workshop Montreal. Hello, can you see me okay? Let me know in the comments. Hi, hello, welcome back. Happy Monday. I always forget if it's Monday or Friday. And today we are talking about grant writing, grants. And we're going to do, hopefully I'm not going to run out of time, but I always talk too much. But I have two little activities that I want you to do to help you get your grants rolling. If you had never written a grant before for your writing, that's okay. You're just going to pretend like you know. Hi, everybody. Also, nice to see all you familiar faces in the comments. I want you to just pretend today like you know how to write a grant. I want you to pretend today like you have a project that you're ready to write a grant for. And you'd actually be surprised because even if your project is really new or even if you're a new emerging writer, there's a lot of funding out there for people to start projects. So you don't have to have a whole finished product to get a grant. I know a lot of some of the people who watch this, not a lot, but a few aren't in Canada. So that's another thing. I'm not going to go into too much specifics about where to get grants, but if you are in Canada and you don't know about Canada Council for the Arts, you should really check it out. There's a lot of funding there. Or also every province has its own funding body for arts. So you always want to look locally first and then look nationally. But what I'm going to more talk about today is how do you get into your grants? How do you make them powerful? I've written a lot of grants. I've been on a lot of juries and I teach grant writing. And so I'm going to give you some tips, a few little quick tips on how to make sure your grant is really powerful, how to make sure you get that money, hopefully, and also how to get in the right headspace when you're making grants. So there are two activities. Get your pen and paper ready. They're going to be quick activities. The first thing I want to say, we'll show the charity. Oh, good. Madeline's on her way moving to Canada. So you got to get to know our grants here. We got some really good grant bodies here in Canada. Very supportive. I want you to really take 2 seconds today to read some of the Black Lives Matter Roundup resources from Quebec Drama Federation. If you can click that link, qdf.com, or no, I don't know if it's .com or .ca, but look up Quebec Drama Federation and check out some of those resources, get educated, get informed. If you can't go out and join the movement, you can join the movement from home by educating yourself, doing everything you can to be an ally and supporting the things that are happening in the world right now. If you feel like there's no way I'm going to get a grant for my writing, I don't believe in my writing, I hate my writing, you might want to watch episode 17, the one that just passed, because I just did a big activity on what to do when you hate your writing. But I'm going to assume today that you love your writing, that you're ready to apply for some funding. It's a really good thing to do is that you want to work on your story every day. And some days you're going to go to that table and be like, ugh, I don't want to write anything today. I'm not feeling creative. I'm not feeling like editing. I'm not feeling like diving into the draft. This is a good day to keep the ball moving by thinking about business, thinking about the grant, thinking about how you describe the piece to others, right? The number one tip I can give you is first start by talking about your project out loud. When you read a grant and there's so much blah, 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 you always want to say, like, what's the essential information here? A grant is all about giving the essential information and eliminating the rest. It's about giving people a really clear picture of what your project is and why, really articulating why do I need support. You're not selling your project like it's a done thing. You're asking for support to help with the process, right? Why do I like writing grants? Well, one thing is I decided really early on. Well, the first thing is when I was a kid, I babysat everyone in town. And when I was 14, I started working at McDonald's. And when I was 18, I moved to downtown Toronto on my own with negative 200 in my bank account. And when you're somebody who's working in the service industry hour for hour and you want to be an artist, you start realizing really quickly, I need to do more to get time for myself to work on my art, right? It's an essential thing. And then also when I got my first $1,000 grant, I was like 20 years old, I cried, because I never held a $1,000 check in my hand before. So the first suggestion, I guess, is to need money, maybe, or more just to think, if you more think your motivation for getting the grant has to kind of come before the grants. You have to get motivated, you have to get rejected, you have to keep going. But then when you start getting the grants, it's a very motivating feeling and it's going to keep you applying for more. So the first thing is, if you hate grants, is just get out of that suffering, oh, grants are so hard, this narrative you hear everywhere from every artist. I'm sure everyone in the comments can agree. Everywhere you go, people hate grants and it's so difficult, blah, blah, blah. I love grants. I love grants because they're a creative, oh, did my thing, oh good, it's still working. I love grants because they're a creative experience for me. I make them into a creative activity. They're about articulating my project and visioning and planning and getting excited about where I could go. I really truly get in that mindset. And then the other thing is I like being an entrepreneur, right? And an entrepreneur understands the problem with theater is or with storytelling is you're the business. So it's hard to separate the personal from the business. But an entrepreneur understands that there's 3 years of losing money when you start a business. There's 3 years of ending up at zero, just barely making by. And then if you're lucky, there's 3 years of profit. And it's the same for getting grants. There's a period of a lot of rejections. Nobody knows who you are. You're learning how to write grants. You're not very good at it right away, right? There's a period where you flatline, where it's like, yeah, I'm paying my bills, but it's not like I'm full-time artist. It's not like I'm making a grant every month. And then if you keep going, there's a period where you get good at it. There's a period where you get into a system, where you build a system for yourself, where it doesn't feel as difficult. You start making more money. The first thing I'm going to tell you, and so when that money rolls in, that's when you start thinking, okay, I like this grant thing, right? You got to kind of vision it ahead of the game and get to that place, right? Through a lot of like negative energy of grants are so hard, I'm going to get rejected, it's not good enough, it's too complicated, it's not worth it. Once you get into a flow and the money starts coming in and you start getting money that you forgot you applied for, you're going to be like, oh, I'm glad I learned how to do this. It's not that hard. First thing I'm going to tell you is a real simple tip. And it's probably the most obvious tip, but it's one that you'd be surprised how many people forget it. Before you write a grant, get a blank piece of paper or 2 blank pieces of paper and write down who, what, where, when, why, and how. It's one of the most essential things that every granting body looks for. Did you articulate these very clear things? Who is involved? Who's in the project? What is the project? What is the story? Where are we doing it? Where are we working on it? How are we going to work on it? What's our style? What's our thing? When are we going to work on it? What's our timeline? And why are we working at it? What's our questions? What's our reasons? What I want you to do, and maybe don't do it right now, or you can pause the video. I want you to look at 2 pages, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I want you to try to write 3 to 5 sentences for each. We're not going to do it right now. I have another activity I want to do right now, but that's something to start with before you even go into the application, before you even look at what questions they're asking you, before you start typing answers into the application for the grant. Do a very simple cheat sheet for yourself that very clearly and very well articulates who, what, where, when, why, and how. And then you have this cheat sheet in front of you. And as they're asking you these questions, you're copying and pasting those answers you have. And by the end, you'll say, oh, I never answered how I'm going to do that. Oh, I never answered when I'm going to do that. Oh, I never answered why I'm doing that. You're going to know what's missing from the grant. You're going to make sure you're not repeating yourself a million times or getting into gobbledygook land of blah, blah, blah. Who, what, where, when, why, and how is your foundation of your grant. And you have to answer simply and clearly. Take a day to work on that. Take a week to work on that before you even look at the grant. And then there's one more thing I wanted to say about that too. Like the front page of every grant is what people read. And sometimes they're not going to read more than the front page. That's the reality of grants. There's a lot of people applying. It's very competitive. They're going to read that first page and they're going to get a sense of who you are. You want that first page to summarize everything that's to follow. You want that first page to give a really clear summary of who, what, where, when, why, and how am I doing this project, right? The second thing, so I want you to think about that, and we could do a whole million. I have a million activities around that, but we don't have time for that today at all. What I want you to do is I want you to take out a piece of paper. We're going to do 2 minutes of writing. I want you to split that paper into 3 sections. And you're going to pretend every timeline is different, but a clear timeline is how you get a grant. You have to show them exactly what you're going to do and how. If you say, I'm going to write a first draft by February, that doesn't give me a sense of how are you going to do that? What's exciting about that? What are you exploring? So I want you to separate. We're going to pretend it's a 3-month grant, but it's actually could be longer, could be shorter, but we're going to pretend it's in 3 sections, part 1, 2, and 3, A, B, C, month 1, month 2, month 3. And I want you to just divide your ideas like that just as a structural activity. You can change it. You can add weight to whatever month, but the first thing I want you to do is separate the functions. There's the part of you that needs to research and develop. There's the part of you that needs to data dump and churn it all out. And there's a part of you that needs to edit and structure and put it together and finesse it, right? And it's important when you write a grant, and it's important when you are a writer to separate those functions. So first I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to try to write in section A anything that you can think of that this piece would need in terms of research and development. Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to ask? What are you going to read? Where are you going to go? How are you going to get ready so that you're ready to start writing before you start writing? And I want you to just flesh that out. I'm going to give you 45 seconds, not even a minute. So write it in the A section. All the research and development ideas you can think of in 45 seconds. Ready? If you just started a play, just pretend. What would I do to learn more about it? Not writing, researching, developing, planning. 45 seconds, ready, set, go. I have no fly cam today. I'll do the charity. Who's involved? Who do you want to talk to? Do you need history? Do you need classes? Do you have to go train somewhere? Is there a style or structure you want to learn more about? Do you have to watch something, get something, feel something? It could be emotional. 20 more seconds. Do you need coaching? Do you need therapy? What do you need to be prepared for what you're about to do? Is it going to be emotional? Do you need a support system? 5, 4, 2, 1. So that's part A. It's I want to articulate all the work I'm doing to lead up to the writing. I don't want to just say I'm going to start writing on January 1st. No, I want to show that I'm preparing my plate, right? And I'm getting people involved and I'm asking the right people. So the next thing is now you're in the section B of your timeline. I want you to think about if you had to put into pieces like, okay, now I have all this information, all this research. I'm ready to start dumping things out of me. How are you going to do that? Are you going to start with characters and then build a story? Are you going to make an outline, a skeleton first, and then start filling in the gaps? Are you going to work on all the monologues and then dialogues? Are you going to dance through it with actors? How are you going to build up the data? How are you going to release all this writing? A bunch of stuff that I can play with. You're not editing yet. You're not finalizing. Just start thinking about in the data dump. What are the steps? What are the things I'm going to do that are unique to this project? You have 45 seconds. How am I writing? Maybe you're moving and writing. Maybe you're painting and writing. Maybe you have to transcribe interviews or talk out loud or improvise. Maybe you need actors just for this part even. 20 more seconds. How are you getting it out of you if you had a whole month? Maybe you need to go somewhere to do it. Are you going to do a writer retreat? Are you going to lock yourself in your attic? Ten seconds. How are you getting it out of you? And be creative. You don't know. You're not stuck with how you decide. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to give you 45 seconds to do is section C. Now it's like you've done all this research and development. You've done this dump of data. You have all this stuff, material in front of you. What is the next phase? How are you going to sift through it? How are you going to organize it? How are you going to structure it? Are you going to ask somebody to read it and give you feedback? Are you going to ask a director to play with it with actors? Are you going to turn it into a first draft or get it on its feet? Are you going to publish it? Are you going to illustrate it? What's happening in the next phase after you've dumped it all out? How are you playing with what you've worked with? Just think about how am I going to know I'm done this phase, right? So I'm giving you 45 seconds. What's the editing? What's the structuring? What's the playing? How are you going to simplify? How are you going to complicate? What are you doing after you've dumped data? 45 seconds. Where do you think it's going? Once I get all this material built up, I'm going to play with it by doing what? Maybe think, what's the deliverable at the end of this? Am I going to have a first draft? Am I going to have a story outline? Am I going to have a character bio fleshed out? Am I going to have a recorded sample of 5 minutes? At this phase, where do you see the end point of just this phase, not the whole project? 10 more seconds. What's the end zone of phase 1? So I knew I was going to run out of time. I always have so much plans, but 15 minutes, man, I'm telling you, it goes so fast. So maybe I'll do another grant one. But I am going to leave you on one thought that I wanted to share really quick. So you've sort of thought, I want you to take some time, think about who, what, where, why, and how before you look at any of their questions. How do you articulate your plan and then blend that into what the grant is asking for? And then the timeline, how do you really articulate what would I do with all this time? And always add more time to your grants. You don't want to be like, I'm going to write it in 2 weeks, give me money. No, I'm going to spend a month researching it. I'm going to spend a month churning it out. I'm going to spend a month editing it. I'm going to spend a month sharing it. You also maybe want to add a little bit at the beginning and the end of your timeline for like the work you're going to do even before the research. How are you preparing and organizing? The work you're going to do after the first draft. How are you getting it out there? How are you promoting it? How are you applying for more grants, right? I could talk about grants forever. I wanted to take your questions today. I ran out of time. I think in a week or two, I'm going to do one more grant activity, but I want you to start thinking about more. What are your questions? What is your research? Rather than what is your product, what are you selling? A grant wants to feel like they're helping you. They want to feel like they're helping you on a journey as an artist. They're helping you push a new structure or form of art forward. Or they're helping you explore a topic or a story, a theme, a character, right? They want to feel like they're helping. So when you get someone that's like a car salesman who's like, my play is so good, it's done, give me money. You're like, why are you applying for money? Go produce it then. You want to be more like, these are the questions I'm searching for. These are the reasons I need to keep searching. I don't have all the answers. I'm not finished. It's not perfect, right? Imperfection and professionalism is kind of the balance. You want to look creative. You want to look like you have a lot of ideas, but you also want to look like you have questions and you're researching those ideas. You want to look like you are creative and fun and have lots of ideas, but you also want to look like that you're a business person who knows how to organize your plan and knows how to organize a room and who knows how to organize an entrepreneurial endeavor. So that's it for today. I'm sorry I didn't take a lot of your questions, but share and like if you can. I'm going to do I have another grant activity that we didn't do because I ran out of time. But if you have any major grant questions, put them in the comments and I'll try to go through and answer them this week. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself. There's a lot of grants out there for emerging artists, so you should really look around and don't be afraid to call grant places. They have officers who want to talk to you, who want to ask you questions. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any specific questions about grants, put it in the comments. You never know. I like answering them. I'll talk to you guys soon. I'll see you on Friday. Take care of yourself. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye.